welcome back to Map the Maze. This week, I want to talk to you about what you can do during the mediation, during the difficult conversation, to stay in control. The reason why this is important is not to minimize the feelings that you have or to invalidate them. The reason why it's important to find a way to regulate your emotions is that they can distract you from achieving your goals. That one of the challenges is that when we are overtaken by emotion, when we're triggered, when our amygdala is telling us it's fight, flight, or freeze, i.e. play dead, that we stop using all of the resources that we have in our prefrontal cortex. We stop using our problem-solving brain. We stop being able to weigh and analyze things. And the challenge is that in mediation, you can miss opportunities. That sometimes there's a moment in a negotiation or a difficult conversation when there is a chance to close the gap. There is a chance to move forward. And if instead of being able to reflect and understand this is that moment, I can take this chance, this is a point where we're going to be able to close this, that if instead you are hijacked by your emotions, hijacked by the way that you feel about the other person that you're in the difficult conversation with, you may miss that chance. And so I think acknowledging your emotions, really important, not minimizing them, dealing with how you feel, but also finding a way when you are in the moment to stay in the moment. So there are, I guess, 4 big tips that I have that I have experienced as working and that I have seen other people be able to apply and use to their benefit within a difficult conversation. The first one is going to sound a little bit strange, but it is about increasing your capacity. So we all have a level of resilience. We all have a level of capacity to take irritations, to deal with frustration, to engage when we are feeling negative emotions. The challenge is that sometimes our capacity to handle and manage that is overwhelmed. And one way to increase your capacity to, deepen your capacity to deal with strain and the stress of a difficult conversation is to focus on flow. So flow is that state that you may or may not have experienced, I hope you have, where you aren't aware of what's happening around you. You are so focused on the task. So for example, some people I know, not myself, some people I know find it when they're swimming, that there's something about the repetitive motion. All they're focused on is my next stroke, my next breath, my next kick. I'm doing my next length. Some people are able to experience it through meditation, barely ever, meditation. Some people can get there through meditation, whether that's mindfulness or breathing meditation or even walking meditation. For me, it's walking with my dogs or making art, but painting. So doing watercolors. It's about finding a space where whatever is happening in your life is put on hold and that you actually get to re-engage and refocus just on what it is that you are passionate about doing, something that you really enjoy. So what I would say is there's probably something that you know that is. It could be exercise, it could be art related, it could be spending time with certain people doing things. Whatever it is, find it. Very important. Second step, schedule it. So I know lots of people who are aware of what that flow state is for them and how it makes them feel and how it recharges. It increases their capacity to deal with the strains that they're under. But because they're busy, because there's a lot of demands on their time, they don't find time to do it every day. And what I would say is it is critical that if you are facing difficult conversations, whether that's in family mediation or outside, you need to find a way to increase your capacity. So really important that you schedule it. Yeah. So it's no point saying, oh, I know this is great for me, I never do it. Find time to schedule it. Yeah. It's important. The second one is that in the belly of the beast, when you are in the difficult conversation, what is one of the most important things I think that you need to do, and that I think we don't consciously make an effort to do, And that's monitor your reactions. So am I feeling flushed? Am I getting hot? Am I starting to get triggered? Is my heart rate raising? Am I breathing more shallowly? All of those can be indications depending on how you display tension, stress, anger, frustration. All of those signs can be warning signs that you are becoming emotionally triggered. You are maybe approaching being emotionally flooded, and this could be the point of overwhelm for you. So I can think back very easily to a good example, which I use when I'm doing this training, which is a client who was very challenging to work with, insisted on coming into the office, even though I said, the office is closed, you don't have an appointment. She came in, there was a lot of shouting, not from me, as she waved a document in my face. And I didn't say anything. I don't know what my face was doing, but I think probably shock. And then I suddenly realized my leg was shaking. I could feel it trembling. And it was so out of the ordinary for me. It was so unusual. It was like an alarm. I just realized I am physically losing control of my body. I am about to lose control and say things that I will, as a professional, regret. So, I'm going to tell you in a minute what I did. But what I would say is, first step, be aware. You're going into a difficult conversation. You will be triggered. You will be challenged. That's a given. The question is, how are you going to decide to deal with it? How are you going to manage yourself to make sure you keep eye on the prize, stay focused on your goals? What are the priorities that you need to achieve? Because it may feel good in the moment to score a point, to be able to tell the other person exactly what you think of them. But if that pushes you further away from achieving your goals, it's not helpful. Yeah. So what I'm trying to say is, may feel good in the moment, but actually long term, does it achieve your goals? So in that example, if I'd shouted at the client and explained how I felt about their inappropriate behavior, it may have felt momentarily satisfying to be able to say that after all of the experiences that we had had together. However, I would have felt really disappointed in myself. I would have felt that I'd been really unprofessional. And so long term, that wasn't my goal. My goal was to maintain professionalism, even under difficult circumstances. So that's what I would say to you, that you might have short-term goals, which are, I've scored a point, but if the long-term goal is a resolution, if the long-term goal is getting out of this situation, how do you achieve that? So if you're monitoring your physical reactions and now you've got a little clue, okay, something is starting to happen. I am starting to feel as if I'm being triggered, as if I am getting close to that. One thing that I find helpful that may or may not be helpful for you is curiosity. Now, I know that's going to sound strange, but give me a moment. When I went off to do my master's training, I had virtually zero skills in how to deal with conflict and how to resolve conflict, even just how to understand what conflict was. One of the things that we learned about was this idea of curiosity, having a curious mindset, being open to the possibility that we don't have all the information, even in our personal lives, certainly in our professional lives, that as a person, if I approach the situation from a position, from a mindset of curiosity, what does this mean? Why are they saying that? What does this mean to them? How can I understand what perspective they have so that I can understand where they're coming from? All of that is really helpful. And I would say it's unusual that often when I'm working with people, particularly in mediation, they have really very much decided what the other person is thinking, why they've got that perspective, where is that position coming from, which is completely justifiable. They could be 100% right. I guess the question is it constructive? So that goes back to that question of, is this mindset, is this attitude helping to advance my goal, or is it challenging my goals? Is it making it harder for me to achieve my goals? Because at the end of the day, the name of the game in mediation is helping to convince the other person, persuade the other person that they want to give you what you want. So what I would say is being curious. Why am I being triggered? What is happening? Why am I reacting like this? And then moving to, what is their perspective? Why is this the way they see it? Particularly if you diametrically are opposed to what they're saying, why is it that they see it like that? So coming from that mindset is really helpful. So monitor, mindset. The next one is easy. If you are really feeling like, you know what, curiosity is interesting, but it's not working for me, and you think, that's it, I am getting very close to losing it, move. It's a 4-letter word, and it's the simplest thing you can do. The reason is that if you think back, and I think I did an episode on how emotions are made, the theory of constructed emotion. Our brain sits in this little black box, and it gets information from our senses. It gets information from our body, feeding in how do we feel, we're feeling hot, we're breathing quickly, what's going on. The brain is then studying to try and make some predictions. This is what's happening. This is what we need to do to keep you, entity, safe and alive. So our brain is trying to make predictions based on the information it receives. If you move, physically move, and whether that's something very small. So in the example that I gave you where my leg was trembling, which was not good, I realized I was about to lose control. And I just said, let me make a copy of that document. So I took the document, came into my office, shut the door, and had a blessed 2 minutes of, I need to recompose myself. I need to recollect. What is my purpose here? What is it that I'm trying to achieve as a professional, which is to be professional. So that's really helpful. And that's something that can be very easy to do, and it can be completely unobtrusive. The other person doesn't need to know that you are being triggered by what's happening. So you can just say, I need to get a glass of water. I'm going to the bathroom. For some of my smoking clients, I'm going outside to have a cigarette. And it's not necessarily that you want the water, you need to go to the bathroom, or you need a cigarette. It's more that it gives you a chance to physically move your body. If this is something that is going to require more of a reset, because actually what's been happening is deeply triggering to you, then I would suggest just saying, I need a break. Yeah. So just let the mediator know. Mediators have no interest in pushing people through their windows of tolerance. Yeah. That what we want people to do is be able to regulate themselves so that they can focus on achieving their goals. And so what I would say is that if you're feeling, I am getting triggered, this is starting to get out of control, I'm going to need more than sort of 3 minutes in the bathroom, just say, I need to take a break. Yeah, no family mediator is going to question whether that's appropriate or not. They're just going to realize you are managing yourself. Yeah, so move, get out of the room, move into another room, go outside, get a coffee, whatever it is, physically move. And the last one is name it. Well, I guess the last one for this part, name it, which is try and identify what it is. Kind of goes back to curiosity. Try and identify what it is that you are feeling. What emotion is this? And when I say that, be as granular as you can. So last week we talked about this idea of the emotion library. What is my vocabulary around emotions? And that the more granular that is, the more subtle it is, the better able you will be to regulate, because you will have a better sense of, this is exactly what I'm experiencing. And with that comes a sense of completion. Ah, got it. I'm not trying to search for the meaning in what I'm feeling. So what I would say is be curious about your own feeling and find the right label. Yeah, find the right way to label it. On a totally practical point, the other thing I would say that you can do if you are in a meeting and maybe you can't get out of the room, that for whatever reason, you need to stay there, but you are being very much triggered by what is being said by the other person. Again, we need to try and find a way to shut down the amygdala, which is trying to take over from your prefrontal cortex, because the amygdala is saying, look, I know how to get us out of this. I know how to do fight or flight. Yeah. You're all about higher thinking and complex problem solving. We don't need that. We need to stay alive. You need to shut the amygdala down. Yeah. Quieten him so that you can check in with your prefrontal cortex. An easy way to do that is to write. So we often say in mediation to people, if you're listening to something and you don't agree, instead of interrupting, which is a natural response to want to say, and I actually had one client shout across the table, you are a liar, which wasn't that helpful, just take a note. And so we'll say that to people, make a note if you don't agree with what's being said, and you'll have an opportunity to share it. Partly it's to enable people to fully remember what it is that they want to say when they have that opportunity to share. The other reason is that writing is a complex activity. Writing helps us to keep the prefrontal cortex activated. Another way to do it is to just do maths. So doing some long division, easy way to keep this part, as Daniel Kahneman called it, system 2, ticking over, to keep system 2 engaged. It's energy, I would say. It's generally hard work to use system 2. So think about what you're doing. But if you can't leave the room, moving would always be my first pick. But if you can't leave the room, try and take notes. Try and take notes. Try and draw. I actually had one client that drew and made notes whilst the other person was speaking. And at the end, she said, "Can I show you what I was writing?" And I said, "Oh, it was notes around the issues we were discussing." And she said, "No." And she showed me, and it was some quite imaginative poetry about how she felt. But it meant she felt, I'm able to stay in control. I can stay focused in the room, be present, and I'm not going to lose control. I would say, I think for some people, there is an element of wanting. I guess there's a difference. Some clients that I work with want to display high emotion because they want the other person to understand, this has been the impact on me. This is how devastated I am. This is how angry I am. This is how upset I am. But I also have clients at the other end of the spectrum who really don't want to display that. They don't want the other person to know how upset they are, or how triggered they are, or how devastating this has been for them. And I guess somewhere in between is where I see a happy medium, which is, it is important to express how you feel so that you have that sense of, well, I've had the opportunity to tell the other person face to face, this is what I'm feeling. But at the same time, as a mediator, what I would hope is people don't get overwhelmed by that the expression of high emotion can become a runaway train. And before you know it, another hour is gone. Now the other person is really agitated and potentially they're very triggered. And now the chance of us having a constructive conversation may have slipped through our hands. So don't lose sight of the end goal because of the momentary satisfaction of saying something that you want to say. Okay, so next week, I'm going to talk about difficult conversations at the back end. How do we reflect on them if they don't go well? Have a good week. Take care. And I will see you on YouTube.